Welcome to Evolving Into Her. I'm Ashley Hope, and this is your weekly check-in to get out of your head, into your body, and back into alignment with the version of you who's already living the vision. So grab your favorite cup of tea, settle in, and let's get into the show. Hey friends, welcome back to Evolving Into Her. This is the Sunday Coffee Chat edition, and I'm your host, Ashley Hope. This is the podcast for women who are tired of just surviving and who are ready to actually enjoy their lives. Here we talk about the real work of becoming, the healing, the self-trust, building a life that actually feels as good as it looks. And if you're new here, thank you for showing up week after week. I really appreciate you. Speaking of showing up, before I forget, let me shout out Nairobi, Kenya. Apparently, the women in Nairobi, Kenya have been showing up, showing out, and running up the numbers, okay? I got an email from my hosting platform a few days ago, and I've only been podcasting for 8 months, but this data was still helpful. But I'm from the US, of course, so you'd think the top cities where my podcast would be streamed would be the typical the New York, the Baltimore, the Washington, D.C., maybe the Charlotte, North Carolina, the Houston, Atlanta. My number one city where my podcast is listened to is Nairobi County, Nairobi, Kenya. That is so beautiful. And then Washington, D.C. follows and Atlanta, Georgia. So I just want to thank everyone who listens, especially my sisters in Nairobi. Girl, I see you. I want to make sure that I shouted you out, that I showed you love. Thank you for listening. I see y'all. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. And thank you for listening and supporting the show. All right, so let's get into the practice. The practice started last week, and the response I've gotten to it has been incredible. You guys are so excited about it. You have been looking for your accountability partners in the Spotify comments, which I've loved to see and I've loved to witness. If you're new here and you're like, what is the practice? This may be something I'm interested in. The practice is my year-long weekly journaling series, and it's going to come to you in the form of a free newsletter. You'll get it every Sunday evening, and it's designed to help you do the deep work. And when I say deep work, I don't mean that it's heavy. I don't mean that you're going to be trauma dumping. It's not going to be traumatic. This entire first quarter, we're focusing on safety. We're building safety from the inside, from within. And these prompts are not surface level, what are you grateful for prompts, but they're the deep kind that create actual transformation and allow you to witness your transformation in real time. So the next prompt drops tonight at 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I have to tell you, I have committed to doing the practice with you. And I sat down last week, put my timer on, I put some R&B music on, dimmed the lights, I lit a candle. And I was genuinely surprised that I filled up the entire page. In last week's prompt, we were talking about what safety feels like, something along those lines. And I wrote about safety in all these different areas of my life, in my body, what safety felt like in my finances, what safety felt like in my work, in my home, in my friendships, in my romantic partnership, in my mind, in my relationship with the Most High. I really looked at safety from all angles. And one of my answers really stopped me in my tracks. And I wrote that safety feels like not needing all the answers. It feels like making peace with uncertainty. It feels like embracing the unknown. And that realization shook me, okay? Because the Ashley from 10 years ago, she did not like uncertainty at all, okay? She had a plan B, C, D, and E just in case. And back then, I would say my faith was really strong. I trusted God, but I also had a backup plan just in case he didn't show up. Just keeping it real with y'all. So to witness that growth through this one prompt, that was so beautiful. I really sat with that all week. And I don't know what it is about having that one prompt to focus on, but it really guided my mindset the entire week because I was looking for signs of safety. I was looking for how it felt in my body, how I experienced it. I was evaluating certain connections and really asking myself in this season, does this connection feel safe? And unfortunately, some didn't and some did. And I could feel the difference. I knew the difference. And yeah, I'll move accordingly. But if you have not signed up yet, the link is in the show notes. And don't worry, it's not too late. You can sign up anytime throughout the year and just pick up wherever we are in the series. But I will say the earlier you can get in, the better. If you need an accountability partner, send this episode or the link to a friend. A few women have already been connecting in the Spotify comments. Some people have put a call out that they need an accountability buddy. So you can also look through there and see if you can find someone to support you on this journey. And real quick, before we dive into today's topic, if this podcast is adding value to your life, please leave me a rating and or review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. All right, friend, you know the deal. Grab something you can sip slow and let's get into the show. So, when you hear the word survival mode, what comes to mind? Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? Have you ever been there? Have you ever experienced it? Because for most people, it's extreme situations. It's being broke, maybe homeless, dealing with a serious health crisis, going through a divorce, losing a job, being in an abusive or toxic relationship. But I'm doing this episode today because survival mode is way more subtle than that. And a lot of us may not realize that we are still in it. You can have money in the bank. You can have the good job. You can have the nice home, the healthy relationship, and still be operating from a place of pure survival. And sis, if you don't recognize it, you can't shift out of it. So today I want to walk you through 5 signs that you might be in survival mode, not the obvious extreme versions, but the everyday versions that so many of us are living in without realizing it. So sign number 1 that you might be in survival mode. What you call being responsible is actually hypervigilance. And let me break that down. You pride yourself on being the responsible one. Does that sound familiar? The reliable one, the strong one, the one who thinks ahead and has everything handled. But if we're honest, it's exhausting because you always end up scanning for problems before they even happen. You're always thinking 3 steps ahead. You're always noticing what could go wrong so you could prevent it. At work, you may be anticipating your boss's needs before they even ask. You're already solving problems that haven't happened yet because you saw them coming. In your relationships, you're managing everyone else's emotions. You can sense when someone's mood shifts and you're already adjusting yourself to keep the peace. You're hyper aware of tone, of body language, of energy, because you learned probably since you were a little girl that staying alert keeps you safe. It keeps you out of trouble. You notice everything. You notice who's upset. You notice what's off. You notice what needs to be fixed, and you can't turn it off. Even in spaces that are supposed to be relaxing, whether it's a dinner with friends, a family gathering, you're still scanning. You're still monitoring. You're still on duty. People probably call you thoughtful. Eldest daughters, we know all about this. People probably call you considerate, reliable, the person who always remembers the details. And you are those things. Like that's truly who you are. But underneath it, you're tired because hypervigilance is not the same as being prepared. It's not that simple. Hypervigilance is your nervous system staying in a constant state of alert because somewhere along the way, likely in childhood, you learned that letting your guard down wasn't safe. And it looks like responsibility, so nobody questions it, including you. Second sign that you may be in survival mode. You cannot rest without feeling guilty. This is a big one for Black and Brown women, for eldest daughters, for a lot of women, actually, for most women. Even when you've carved out time to do nothing, to sit on the couch, to read a book, to watch a show, to just be, there's this little voice in the back of your head saying, you should be doing something productive right now. So you can't actually enjoy the rest because you're low key anxious the entire time. You're sitting there trying to relax, but you're also thinking about the emails you need to send, the laundry that needs to be folded, the project you should be working on. Or you only allow yourself to rest after you've worked yourself down to the bone. Like rest has to be earned or justified, or you have to prove you deserve it by being productive first. And then you're probably doing something while you rest, right? Does that sound familiar? You're folding laundry while you watch TV. You're listening to a professional development audiobook while you cook. You're scrolling through work emails while you eat lunch because doing nothing can feel wasteful. You might even feel guilty for going to bed at a reasonable hour, like sleep is something you have to squeeze in between being productive rather than being a non-negotiable need. Sis, rest should not require justification, okay? Your body needing to rest is not laziness. It is biological. It's a biological need. But when you're in survival mode, your system believes that if you stop, something will fall apart, something will slip through the cracks, someone will be disappointed, something will get missed. So it keeps you moving even when your body is literally begging you to stop. And the third sign that you may be in survival mode is that you sabotage good things when they start feeling too good to be true. And this one's sneaky because you don't always recognize it as sabotage in the moment. So you could have a relationship that's going really well, like genuinely well, and suddenly you're picking fights over the small things. You start looking at this person with a critical eye. You start pulling away emotionally. You create distance because it feels too vulnerable to let someone get that close. Another example, let's say your business or your career is flowing. You're getting clients, you're making sales, you're getting positive feedback. And then you just stop posting. You stop showing up. You ghost your audience. You make it harder for people to work with you. And essentially, you're creating chaos where there was once momentum. Another example, money starts coming in consistently and you make a weird financial decision that doesn't make any sense to you later. You may overspend, you may undercharge, you turn down opportunities. Another example, let's say you finally have some peace in your life and suddenly you start creating drama or crisis because the calm feels uncomfortable. And that sounds crazy, but there's a lot of people who do that. And this happens because deep down, you don't believe you get to have good things without them being taken away. So instead of waiting for the inevitable collapse because your nervous system is convinced it's inevitable, you burn it down yourself. At least then you're in control of when it ends. It's like your nervous system is saying, I'd rather destroy this myself than give it the power to destroy me. And the worst part is you don't even realize you're doing it until after the fact, until hindsight. Then you're sitting there like, why did I do that? That wasn't necessary. Things were going so well. So when you sabotage and you move like that, that's your nervous system saying, ooh, this feels unsafe because I don't trust good things get to last. And the fourth sign that you may be in survival mode. You struggle with vulnerability. You're the friend everyone comes to. You're the space holder. You listen, you support, you give advice, you lend a helping hand, you lend a shoulder, you show up. But when it's your turn to need something, that same support, you don't know how to receive it. You don't know how to ask for it. So if someone asks, how are you really doing? And you say, I'm fine, even when you're not. You minimize your struggles. You downplay what you're going through. You make it smaller than it is because being seen in your pain feels too exposed. You don't talk about what's hard. You don't share when you're struggling. You keep your cards close to your chest because showing people the messy, uncertain, struggling parts of you feels dangerous. Maybe you've been hurt before. Maybe you shared something vulnerable and it was used against you, or dismissed or turned into gossip. So essentially, you learned that it's safer to keep things surface level and to keep your cards close. Don't tell people your business. Or maybe you grew up in an environment where emotions weren't safe, where being too much or too sensitive or too emotional got you criticized or ignored. So you learned to be strong. You learn to handle things on your own, to swallow your emotions, to not need people. And when you've operated this way, vulnerability can feel like handing somebody a weapon, like giving them access to hurt you, like being out of control. So you stay protected, you stay strong, you stay behind walls that keep you safe, but also keep you lonely. And you wonder why your relationships feel surface level, why you feel so disconnected, even though you're surrounded by people, why nobody really knows you. It's because survival mode taught you that being seen is dangerous, so you learn to hide. And the fifth sign, this is a big one. The fifth sign that you may be in survival mode is that you make most of your decisions from a place of fear instead of desire. You're not asking, what do I actually want? You're asking, what's the safe choice? What's the smart choice? What won't blow up in my face? What has a high probability of working? So someone asks you what you want to do this weekend and you genuinely don't know. You have no idea. And not because you don't have preferences, but because you've been overriding your own desires for so long that you can't even hear them anymore. You stay in jobs you hate because they're stable. Been there, done that. You stay in relationships that aren't fulfilling because they're comfortable. Also, been there, done that. You don't pursue the thing you really want because what if it doesn't work out? What if I end up embarrassed? What if I fail? And you make the practical choice, the responsible choice, the choice that makes sense on paper, but your whole body is screaming because it's not what you really want. And you've been operating like this for so long that you might not even know what you want anymore. You just know what feels safe. You just know what feels manageable, what keeps you protected, what won't disappoint other people. You know what everyone else wants from you. You know what's expected of you. But what do you want? That question almost feels foreign. And when you live like this, you wake up one day and you realize you've been living someone else's version of a good life, of a happy life, of a fulfilled life, of a successful life. You've been making choices based on fear of what could go wrong instead of excitement about what could go right. And you can't even be mad at yourself for it because you were just trying to survive. You were just trying to make the smart choice, the safe choice. But at some point, you really got to sit down, sit with yourself, and ask yourself, am I living? Am I truly living? Or am I just trying not to lose? Now, these are just 5 signs that you may be in survival mode. And of course, there are others. Some really common ones are constantly planning for the worst, struggling to receive help, receive compliments, feeling guilty when things are going well, constantly bracing for impact. But I wanted to focus on these 5 because they're the ones I see the most often. And if you're checking off multiple things on this list, I need you to just take a deep breath, literally breathe in through your nose. Expand your belly, hold that breath at the top, and then slowly exhale through your mouth. So, why is survival mode so hard to see in yourself? And the answer is because it works. Like, it actually works. It kept you safe, it got you through hard things. It's literally the reason you're still here, friend, that you're still here, you're still standing, you're still functioning, you're still pushing through. So your brain is like, this strategy is effective. It helps her. So let's keep doing it. And when you've been doing it long enough, it doesn't feel like strategy anymore. It just feels like who you are. It starts to feel like your personality, like this is just how you operate. And then what's even more confusing is you look around at your peers, at your aunts, at your cousins, your mom, your friends, and you see other people doing the exact same thing, operating the same way. They're grinding, they're pushing, they're staying guarded. And you think, okay, well, this must be normal. This must be what adulting looks like. But sister, just because it's common doesn't mean it's natural. It doesn't mean it's healthy. It doesn't mean it's in alignment for you. It doesn't mean it's serving you. Okay? Just because it worked back then at some point in your life, in a different season of your life, doesn't mean it's serving you now. And maybe you developed these patterns in a home where you had to walk on eggshells, or in a relationship where you just couldn't trust that today's safe person wouldn't become tomorrow's threat. Or you learned it in a job where one mistake could cost you everything. And again, those patterns made sense at one time. They kept you safe in an environment that was actually unsafe. But now, Christina's gone. You're not in that house anymore. You're not a little girl anymore. You're not with that person anymore. You're not in that job anymore. The actual threat is gone. But your body doesn't know that. Your nervous system doesn't know that. So it's still running on that same old programming it created way back then. And it's still operating like the threat is active, still keeping you in survival mode, even though the danger has passed. It's like you upgraded your whole life, but forgot to tell your body that it's safe to relax now. And nobody, and I mean nobody, taught us how to come down from that. Nobody taught us that it's okay to trust again, that it's okay to want things, that it's okay to rest, that good things can actually stay. And if you're recognizing yourself in this conversation, if you're like, okay, I see it now, but what do I actually do about it? That's actually beautiful, because awareness is always the first step. Awareness is a beautiful gift, and you can't shift what you can't see. And if you want support with this is exactly one of the reasons I created the practice. This entire first quarter, we're focusing on safety, and not this fake bypass your feelings kind of safety, not the just be positive kind. We're focusing on the real deep nervous system level safety that comes from doing the internal work. And we're not bypassing what you've been through. We're not pretending the hard things didn't happen. We are honoring them. We're acknowledging them. And then gently, so gently, we're teaching your nervous system that you're allowed to rest now, that you're safe now. And every week you'll get a journaling prompt in your inbox, not those surface level prompts that you can breeze through in 5 minutes. Something you have to really sit down with, real prompts, the kind that make you sit with yourself, the kind that create actual transformation. It's completely free. There's no catch. Just me showing up for you every Sunday evening with the tools to help you build safety from within. And per usual, you can sign up at the link in the show notes. And just so you know, on Tuesday, we're going to talk about what comes after survival mode, what overflow actually feels like, and why safety has to come first. Because once you recognize you're in survival mode, you need to understand where you're headed, what you're building toward, what's possible on the other side of this. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that one. All right, friends. Thank you for spending your Sunday with me. Thank you for being here, for doing this work, for choosing yourself. My name is Ashley Hope, and until next time, stay in devotion to your becoming. I'm Ashley Hope, and you've been listening to Evolving Into Her. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you for choosing her, for choosing yourself. And until next time, stay in devotion to your becoming.